On the 23rd of February 2023, SABC News, in partnership with BDO South Africa, will unpack Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana's budget speech and reflect on the impact government spending has on the lives of ordinary citizens. Catch the discussion live on Full View. SABC News, independent, impartial.
A concern for South Africa's business sector is the impact of the worsening energy crisis. Record levels of rolling blackouts experienced last year, 207 days as compared to 75 days of rolling blackouts the previous year. Now, this has added further pressure on businesses who are already struggling. For more on this, let's speak to Tebogo Khaas from the Institute of Chartered Entrepreneurs. Thank you so much for your time. Rolling blackouts becoming the biggest concern for businesses, whether big or small. When you listened to the minister today, do you think an entrepreneur in South Africa is more optimistic?
With all these rolling promises that we had today, there is no hope at all, because really the minister offered nothing new. If anything, he tried to regurgitate the one of aspect of the, I think it was his budget last year or the president's speech, the one about loan guarantee scheme, which floundered, by the way. And other than that, we really haven't seen anything, because even so many other things, including from the red tape, we're still experiencing.
And we'll get to the red tape in just a moment. But the loan, that guarantee scheme, the government underspending on that, a lot more people in the previous time not being able to get onto that, and thus signaling that there was something wrong with how this was being done, and government promising that they're going to do things differently this time around. I wonder what's different in your view then?
If anything, we are the most gullible citizenry, the whole world, because government makes promises, as they did with the COVID relief fund. You show me an SME that has benefited to the extent that it was promised, I'll tell you, I'll be able to bite my elbow as something that I can know. It's an impossibility. And it is all about promises, but they probably don't even have the capacity. They're not even ready to even deliver on that. So they're probably just, if you had, it was carefully crafted that we propose changes. So they haven't made changes. They are going to still propose. So next year they'll be sitting and say, now these are the changes, because then there's nothing to hold government accountable on based on what was delivered today.
And you listen to the minister, and he talks about the energy crisis and the difficulties that not only are experienced by business owners, but also South Africans in general. And he says that government is dealing decisively with this problem to be able to add more power to the grid. Is it as decisive, though, as they think it is?
But decisively how? Because you're telling small businesses or entrepreneurs that we'll guarantee 20% of your purchase, the loan for the generator or solar panel or whatever it is. But they don't say where you're going to get the 80% from, having come from all these years of struggling. And by the way, we've got a crime problem. The statistics have just been released. All those solar panels, Lord forgive me, they'll be all plundered, or stolen, sorry, not plundered. Stolen, you'll see them missing, and we know that our criminal justice system is nowhere to be found. So none the wiser for small businesses.
So you're not even convinced by the money that's also now being put in for crime-fighting efforts?
Not at all, because the proof of the pudding is in the eating. What we've been served so far is nowhere at all convincing, because with the stats that we've just seen, murder rates going high, thefts and criminality of all order, there is no way that we can feel that the police will be on top of things. And business robberies have also increased, and especially SMEs, who are the most vulnerable. You never hear of an old mutual having been robbed at gunpoint, but certainly you've seen old ladies, people being mugged or their wares taken off their stores.
And you talk about, the challenges of crime, but also at the same time you think about the businesses, because these are businesses that would be struggling with the impact of COVID-19, would have struggled with the impact of rolling blackouts, would be struggling with the impact of the rising cost of living. And then now you're adding crime to this particular picture. You alluded to this a little earlier on when we were talking about, just your reaction, the issue of red tape. Let's talk about how this continues to further hurt businesses and whether or not the efforts that have been put by the president at his level through this, the department that is now looking at this red tape, whether or not that's helping.
Yeah, I hate to be the one saying this, but we seem to be operating, the president seems to be operating at a different level, completely aloof and devoid of, and misplaced from the reality on the ground. Because when he talks about red tape, he's talking about business visas. Small business are not affected by business visas. In most instances, you want to employ people that are local because the youth is local people. So people coming from abroad. They are neglecting small business so far as the red tapes are concerned. There's a lot of red tape that has actually been added on the burden that is already on the shoulders of small business. Like, for example, recently we had an issue with the Companies Information Intellectual Property Commission, where they introduced a new filing method, XBLR. I didn't even hear about XBLR before in my life, and only to learn about it when we were supposed to do filings, without first even bringing on board small business. So this is something, be prepared for it. But still, unfortunately, they had to reverse, to undo that. That's the kind of regulatory burden that small business, even those who want to comply and make sure that they file their annual returns timeously and be able to stand to not have any impediments when they approach banks for loans to say, look, your filings are not in order, you've got this still outstanding and all those things. But it's a burden that government seems to be doing without any worry.
So I suppose then that the criteria then to qualify for this bounce back support, if I can even put it that way, because it does look like you need to be in order, upstanding for you to be able to benefit from this. So listening to you, some of the businesses may be on the back foot here.
No, absolutely. In fact, it is just a perfect storm for non-compliance, which will make it a perfect storm, which will lead to business not being able to access the kind of credit or relief that they seek.
And just before we wrap up then, because there's another issue which, still continues as far as small businesses are concerned, and it was mentioned by the Gauteng Premier in his State of the Province address, is still the fact that businesses are still not paid on time. You're finding the fact that their invoices are still not paid in record time, and this simply means that for them recovering and being able to contribute to the job creation that they're supposed to be might be non-existent.
I'm laughing because the first time we heard about that from the Gauteng province or provincial government was when Mbazi Mashilo was still premier. They were talking about payment, 30 days.
And all of that, yeah.
Some were actually even saying 14 days and all that. But all we've seen, none of that. It's all lip service. We have never felt it. But we find that in the private sector, indeed, we do find a responsiveness. And let me also not throw everybody in the same category. You do have state-owned enterprise or companies such as Telkom, who do pay small businesses on time, even sometimes even within 14 days of invoicing and all those things. We encourage government departments or government entities to take heed and leave from those who are performing. What the Premier said yesterday, just reciting the same song that we've had many years.
Especially when one thinks about the fact that as a young reporter, you'd cover stories that talk about 30 days. And here we are years later still talking about this particular issue. But let's see then if this picture does improve somewhat for small businesses. Thank you so much for coming in. It's great not to have you on Zoom and to have you in studio. We do appreciate your time. That is Tebogo Khaas from the Institute of Chartered Entrepreneurs.